Andy Murray has reportedly given Alex Ayala a luxury apartment, leaving the tennis world stunned by a gesture no one saw coming. The gift was so unexpected and personal that even Ayala herself was left speechless. It was neither a sponsorship deal nor a publicity stunt, but something far deeper, prompting fans to question what truly connects the two and why this moment came at such a critical point in Ayala's career. Until now, few even knew they shared any kind of relationship. Murray, a three-time Grand Slam champion known for his resilience and remarkable comeback from career-ending surgery, seems an unlikely connection to Ayala, a rising Filipino star battling through challenger tournaments and WTA qualifiers in pursuit of a spot in the top 100, driven purely by talent and determination. On the surface, they appear worlds apart, separated by generation, geography, and experience, but their paths crossed in an unexpected way. The connection began quietly, without cameras or headlines, during a simple conversation on a practice court in London during the grass season, where Ayala was training at the National Tennis Centre, trying to find her footing on an unfamiliar surface. Murray was there recovering from yet another injury setback, practicing with his team on a nearby court, when he first noticed Ayala's baseline game. What caught his attention wasn't just her technique, but the way she moved, the way she chased down balls that seemed impossible, and the fire in her eyes every time she missed a shot. It reminded him of his younger self, or perhaps the version of him who once slept in cramped hotel rooms, unsure if he would ever make it. They began talking casually, at first brief exchanges about footwork on grass, before those moments grew into deeper conversations about life on tour, the loneliness of traveling without a strong support system, and what it takes to survive at the highest level when resources are limited. Murray saw more in Ayala than what most people noticed. Beyond her forehand and court coverage, he recognized the burden she carried as a trailblazer for Filipino women in professional tennis, the weight of national expectations, and the financial strain of funding her own career while competing against players backed by million-dollar teams. Though he didn't say it out loud then, Murray made a quiet decision that day. If he could help, he would, and not in a symbolic way, but in a way that truly mattered. He stayed in touch, sending text messages after matches, offering advice when asked, and giving quiet encouragement when losses mounted and rankings stalled. When he later learned about her unstable living situation, moving between airbums, staying with host families, and sometimes sleeping on couches between tournaments, he knew he had to act. It all came to a head on a Tuesday afternoon in late September, just after Ayala had finished a match. The moment came after a brutal 3-set loss at a WTA 125 event in Spain, leaving Ayala exhausted, frustrated, and questioning whether she was truly improving or simply stuck at the same level month after month. Her coach told her they needed to head to London for a quick meeting, vaguely explaining it had something to do with off-season training logistics, and she didn't think much of it. When they arrived at a sleek apartment building in South Kensington, one of London's most prestigious neighborhoods, Ayala assumed it was another sponsor meeting or potential partnership, the kind she'd attended many times before, corporate offices filled with polite smiles and empty promises that never led anywhere. Instead, there was no conference room or executives waiting for them, only a set of keys resting on a marble counter and a handwritten note addressed to her, "For Alex. You deserve a home base. Keep fighting. Andy." She stared at the note, reading it 3 times before turning to her coach in confusion, quietly asking if it was real. He simply nodded and told her it was hers, that Andy had bought it for her. The apartment itself was on the 4th floor, featuring 2 bedrooms, floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a quiet, tree-lined street, a fully equipped kitchen, and a living room spacious enough to fit recovery equipment, with a second bedroom that could easily double as a training space. The second bedroom could easily be turned into a meditation room, and it quickly became clear that this wasn't just about luxury, but about thoughtfulness. Every detail felt intentionally designed for an athlete: the blackout curtains for post-match recovery, the extra firm mattress, and the quiet location tucked away from the chaos of central London. Ayala walked through the apartment in silence, not crying or shouting, just standing still with trembling hands as she tried to process what had happened. Later, she shared a single photo on Instagram with no caption, only the golden hour light streaming through the window. Within an hour, fans noticed the location tag, and within 2 hours the story had gone viral. The idea that Andy Murray had given Alex Ayala a home sent the internet into a frenzy. Some called it one of the most generous acts tennis had ever seen, while others questioned his motives, speculating whether it was mentorship, charity, or something more. Think pieces appeared, podcasts dissected every angle, and tennis social media erupted into debate. Yet beneath all the noise was a deeper question, one that leads back to Andy Murray himself in 2005, when he was just 19 years old, ranked outside the top 100, traveling alone to ATP tournaments with nothing but a duffel bag and an uncertain dream. His mother, Judy, had sacrificed everything to support him, but even then there were nights when Murray didn't know where he would sleep. Hotels were too expensive, training facilities cost money he didn't have, meals were whatever he could afford, recovery sessions were skipped because a physio was out of reach, and he often lay awake at night, isolated and wondering if he would ever break through. Murray remembered the exhaustion and the constant fear that one bad month could end everything, and he saw that same look in Ayala's eyes. While her situation wasn't identical to his, her family supported her as much as they could, and the Philippine Tennis Association had offered help where possible. The reality of life on the WTA Tour for players outside the top 50 is unforgiving. Prize money barely covers expenses, sponsorships are scarce unless you are already well known, and for someone like Ayala, trying to carry the hopes of an entire country while largely funding her own career, the pressure could feel suffocating. Murray had been quietly following her results for months, seeing the first-round losses, the painful qualifying exits, and the flashes of brilliance so often followed by crushing defeats. He knew what that cycle did to a young player, how it slowly eroded confidence and planted doubts about whether you truly belonged. But he also knew something else, that Ayala had the talent to make it, that she was closer than her ranking suggested, and that what she needed wasn't another generic solution. He knew that what Ayala needed wasn't another sponsorship deal or a motivational speech, but something tangible, something that would remove a major source of stress and allow her to focus fully on her game. So he bought the apartment outright, not as a loan or an investment, but as a gift with no strings attached. He didn't want media attention or public credit. He simply wanted to give a young player the kind of stability he had once wished for himself. In a private message to Ayala after she moved in, he wrote, "I'm not doing this because I think you need saving. I'm doing this because I know you're going to make it, and when you do, you'll remember this moment, and maybe you'll do the same for someone else." Though the message was never made public, people close to Ayala said it changed everything for her, because for the first time in years, she felt like she could finally breathe. The reaction, however, was immediate and deeply divided. On one side, fans were in awe, calling it one of the most beautiful acts of mentorship in modern tennis. They compared Murray to legends like Billie Jean King, praising the idea of established stars using their resources to lift up those still climbing, and saying this, more than anything, was what a true champion looks like. One viral tweet summed up the admiration, declaring, "Andy Murray just became my favorite player forever." But on the other side of the conversation, skepticism quickly took hold. Many questioned the optics of a male champion gifting a luxury apartment to a young female player, and in an era deeply sensitive to power dynamics and hidden motives, conspiracy theories spread rapidly. Some wondered whether the relationship went beyond mentorship, whether Murray was trying to exert control over Ayala's career, or even whether the gesture bordered on something more troubling. Tennis forums lit up with debate, Reddit threads descended into chaos, and TikTok creators analyzed every public interaction between Murray and Ayala, searching for meanings that simply weren't there. Even respected journalists weighed in, with some praising Murray's generosity and others raising uncomfortable questions about whether a male player saving a female player represented progress or a form of paternalism. During a broadcast, Patrick McEnroe captured the unease when he remarked that while Andy's heart seemed to be in the right place, he wondered whether this set a troubling precedent, asking if it implied that young players couldn't succeed without a benefactor, which was not a message the sport should want to send. Others were quick to push back against the criticism. Martina Navratilova posted, "People will criticize anything. Andy saw someone who needed help and helped. That's it. Stop looking for problems where there aren't any." The strongest support, however, came from fans in the Philippines. For them, the story wasn't about optics or power dynamics, but about respect and recognition. A three-time Grand Slam champion seeing their country's rising star and believing in her enough to invest through action, not just words. Filipino tennis communities rallied behind Ayala as hashtags trended for days. Murals of Murray and Ayala appeared in Manila, and t-shirts were printed. For a nation that had never seen one of its players break into the top 100, the gesture felt historic. Amid all the noise, one voice remained silent, Ayala's. That changed 3 weeks after the story broke, when she finally spoke, not at a press conference or in a carefully crafted social media post, but in a quiet, one-on-one interview with a Filipino journalist she trusted. The video, uploaded to YouTube without fanfare, showed her sitting in the very apartment Murray had given her, speaking candidly from the heart. She admitted that at first she thought it was a joke or a mistake, because things like that didn't happen to people like her, and explained how years on tour had been a constant battle not just on the court, but off it as well, finding places to stay, managing costs, and living with the fear that one injury could end everything because she couldn't afford time off. She said she had always believed that weight was simply part of the journey, Until Murray showed her it didn't have to be that way, that someone believing in you could change everything, not by fixing all your problems, but by reminding you that you matter and that your dream is worth investing in. When asked whether the gift made her feel pressure to succeed, Ayala smiled genuinely and said she felt the opposite, explaining that for the first time she felt able to fail without losing everything, because she now had a place to return to train, recover, and think. She explained that freedom was what would truly make her better, not the apartment itself, but what it represented. When asked about the criticism, the questions around Murray's motives, and the debates over power dynamics, her expression hardened slightly. She said that people would always find something to criticize, but she knew Andy's heart and understood what he had been through, and that this was never about control or publicity, but simply one person helping another. If others couldn't see that, she said, that was their problem, not hers. Before the interview ended, Ayala made a promise. One day, when she reached the place she wanted to be, she would do the same for someone else, because Andy hadn't just given her an apartment, he had given her a blueprint for how to give back. The video went viral, not because of controversy, but because of its honesty, and for the first time since the story broke, people stopped arguing and started listening. Ultimately, this story isn't really about an apartment at all. It's about an issue the tennis world rarely confronts: the gap between talent and opportunity, and the invisible weight that crushes young players before they ever get the chance to prove themselves. Alex Ayala is one of the fortunate ones, not because she is the most talented or worked the hardest, but because someone with resources saw her struggle and chose to act. And that raises a harder question about the hundreds of other players grinding through ITF and challenger events, sleeping in budget motels, skipping meals to afford entry fees, and seeing their careers end not because they lacked ability, but because they ran out of money first. Murray's gesture exposed a truth the tennis world can no longer ignore. The story Murray's gesture revealed is one the tennis establishment often wants to ignore: that the system is broken. Unless a player comes from wealth or is discovered early by a major academy, their chances of making it are slim to none. Some players praised Murray publicly, while others stayed silent, perhaps wondering why no one had done the same for them. Sloane Stephens reflected, "This is beautiful, but it also makes me think about all the players who needed this and never got it. We have to do better as a sport." And Jabber shared the story with the caption, "Mentorship matters. Representation matters. Giving back matters." Yet not everyone celebrated. Some former players questioned whether acts of individual charity were sustainable, or if the solution should be systemic change to ensure no young player had to rely on a benefactor just to survive. As one retired player asked on a podcast, "The tours make billions. Where's that money going? Why isn't there a fund for players ranked 100 to 300 who are one injury away from bankruptcy?" It's a fair point, one the WTA and ATP have avoided addressing for years. But in the meantime, Andy Murray did what he could. He saw someone who deserved a chance and gave it. He didn't give Alex Ayala an apartment for recognition. He did it because he remembered what it felt like to be young, talented, and alone, and because he believes in a tennis world where talent isn't wasted for lack of money. Perhaps, just perhaps, this is the start of something bigger: a shift in how the sport treats its rising stars, and a reminder that mentorship isn't just about advice, but about action. Whether it will change Ayala's career forever remains to be seen, but one thing is certain: she will never forget the moment someone believed in her enough to give her a home.